everybody to, we're in the final stretch of this thing, and we have a session today on normalized advanced advertising. I think we've got a great set of speakers, and we're going to have a panel afterwards where hopefully we'll get into some juicy detail. My name is Keith Christensen. I am Senior Vice President of Global Sales for Cadence Technology. We're an advanced advertising technology provider. We work with folks like Virgin Media, Liberty Global, Videology, Finecast. And I'm going to introduce you today to Francis Grivet, who's going to present for the DVB.
Thank you, Keith. Good morning, everybody. My name is Vincent Grivet. I'm Vice President for Broadcast Development at TDF. TDF is a company in France serving most or all of the broadcast channel. We are very close to the company here in the UK called Arqiva, meaning we are taking care of the towers and transmitters which transmit the classical broadcast TV. But today I will be speaking on behalf of DVB, and I will explain in a moment what DVB is, because not all of you may be familiar with DVB. The short version is DVB is generating technical standards for broadcast television, and DVB becomes interested in generating standardization for addressable advertising in the context of broadcast television. As a matter of fact, I was very pleased yesterday because in one of the sessions, or few of the sessions, which I attended, I heard a lot how broadcast television is still very important, is attracting premium content, is attracting high audiences. And I think it's very encouraging to hear this good news about broadcast, because at a certain moment it was kind of trendy to do some broadcast bashing and predicting that next year broadcast will be something of the past. And I heard on the opposite that these new media like Netflix, like Facebook, like Google, etc., they may start to have their high growth area behind them, and now they come to kind of plateau and the normal life of any business enterprise. So indeed, it is important, we believe, to create the conditions so that addressable and targeted advertising can exist in the context of the classical broadcast television, and this is what I will be trying to introduce this morning. So first, who is DVB? DVB, as I said, is the home for European and to a certain extent also global television, broadcast television standardization. It has about 161 members. You would find in the membership most television channels, whether they are pay TV, free TV, public service, commercial. You will find the broadcast network operators like ourselves, TDF. You will find the telecom operators, because they are quite interested in the TV business, as you may know. And you will find, of course, the TV set manufacturers, and you will find also a large number of surrounding technology providers. I have put only a few logos on that slide. As a matter of fact, these are the logos of the companies who have been participating in a recent study mission within DVB dedicated to targeted advertising, and I hope that soon there will be many more logos interested in that in DVB. DVB is headquartered in Geneva. What does DVB do? DVB is generating, as I said, technology standards for broadcast television. The most well-known standards probably from DVB are DVB-T and DVB-T2, its successor, which are used for terrestrial broadcast television. I'm not sure whether DTT, digital terrestrial television, sounds familiar to everybody. The kind of candid way of describing it is the rooftop antenna on the roof of your home and the coaxial cable that brings TV into your home. It may seem to be something of the past. It is not at all the case. DVB, T, and T2 are probably the largest global broadcast television standard in the world. It's probably used and received on more than 1 billion television sets in the world across 143 countries, where you can see a quick map of that. Everything which is blue, these are countries where DVB-T or DVB-T2 is used. And as you can see, Africa is a large area. And as you may know, 2015, 2 years ago, there was a very important event in the world of television, which has the analog switch off. So more or less by law now, in the entire world, in theory, you cannot have any more analog television over the air. There are no more frequencies allocated to analog television, which means that all countries are supposed at a certain moment to migrate to digital aerial television, and most of the Africa is going to do that with DVB-T2. And an important element on which I'm going to go back in a moment as well is that DVB and DVB-T and T2 are not at all isolated from the internet, the interactive, and the IP world. DVB has a very close cousin, which is named HBB-TV. For those of you who attended the ProSiebenSat presentation yesterday, I think HBB-TV was mentioned a lot, and I was very happy to hear that. So HBB-TV is a very close cousin of DVB. It is absolutely focused on standardizing interactive television. As you can see on the screen, it is now deployed in 32 countries. There are about 300 applications deployed, and some of them are dedicated to advertising, as you could see yesterday in the ProSiebenSat presentation. And there are at least 43 million devices which are enabled with HBB-TV now. And I heard a prediction that this number would be 91 million at the end of next year. And DVB, as we will see, is playing a very important role to enable targeted advertising, addressable advertising in the context of broadcast television. By the way, I have been mixing a little bit the words addressable advertising, targeted advertising. It might not be correct from the point of view of this audience, highly specialized in digital advertising. From our point of view, and apologies for that, we tend to mix up the two names to go to the same concept. And the goal we'd like to achieve is the possibility that within the broadcast TV signal, there will be a number of ads which are broadcasted, which is the current situation, and millions of homes receive the same advertisement, which is broadcasted as part of the broadcast signal. And the goal we'd like to achieve, and this is what we describe with addressable or targeted advertising, is mainly the possibility to substitute on a screen-by-screen basis the broadcasted advertisement by an individually chosen replacement advertisement. We might also refer to this situation as DAS, standing for Dynamic Advertisement Substitution. A question that some people could ask, because again, there might be a general and inaccurate view that broadcast television with an antenna on the roof of the home is something of the past and that it is not relevant. So question is it relevant to organize targeted addressable advertising in the context of DTT and broadcast television? The answer, in our view, and I think it's going to be the view of the broadcaster as well, is definitely yes. DTT and broadcast television is the number one platform to distribute and watch television in 4 countries in Europe. And these are not the smallest country, as you can see on the screen. There is one specific case, which is Germany, where DTT is low. Television in Germany is mostly received through cable or satellite, but the matter remains exactly as relevant because HBB-TV has the good taste of also working over cable, over satellite, and maybe soon or maybe one day also across IPTV and set-top box. An interesting United States, of course, is not here on that slide because the focus is going to be mostly European. What is the situation in United States? It's quite interesting. In United States, DTT is called over-the-air television. Only about 15% of American homes receive television through OTA over the air, but that number is growing at 15% a year. And the reason for that is that it is closely associated with the so-called cord cutting, where the younger generation, they tend to cancel their cable subscription and go to Netflix or Amazon. And suddenly they realize that if they do that, it's great to watch movies, series, but they are losing all the rest of TV. They are losing the sports, they are losing the breaking news, they are losing a number of popular shows. And if they just put an antenna in the air, they receive for free everything. I was not there myself, but I heard that at last year's CES in Las Vegas, the number one hype gadget was a kind of indoor over-the-air or DTT reception antenna for all those people who have removed the traditional antenna on the rooftop, and suddenly they realize that they would like to access to DTT, and they buy this kind of panel antennas that you can put at a window. Another kind of false knowledge about broadcast television, many of you could think, okay, there are big numbers, but this is something for the people who live in the countryside and the older people. Again, this is not correct. In the case of France, we did a number of surveys recently which showed that the DTT weight and penetration was kind of equal between the different geographies, and you will find as many people using DTT in the Paris area as you will find in a very remote area. And a very interesting thing, in a survey we asked the people, if you were to move home, would it be a problem if your new home would not have DTT? You would not have an antenna and you would not have the DTT socket in the wall. In average, 64% of the people said yes, it would be a problem. And believe it or not, the age group which was the most sensitive about that was the age group below 35. And I think it's very much associated to the same phenomena or the same paradigm as cord cutting, because these younger people are probably on the other side, the ones that are the most prone to go to Netflix, Amazon, but again, they realize if they rely on Netflix and Amazon for movies and series, they will miss the normal television, and a good way to get the normal television is broadcast or DTT. So, it is relevant to do addressable advertising with DTT. Next question is, can you do that? The answer is yes, to a certain extent. There have been many trials and demos over the last 2 years. I have quoted a few of them on that slide. One of them was done by IRT, German Research Institute on Television. It was presented publicly at IBC, the big broadcast show in Amsterdam last September. It showed an advertisement replacement over a broadcast transmission. There was another highly visible trial done by RTL in Germany not so long ago. In my understanding, it was satellite-based, but again, the concept is the same. And then on the right side, this is a prototype developed by my company, TDF, which has not been publicly presented yet, so probably it's the first time we show that publicly. This is a special Christmas gift for you. And we are confident that next year we're going to trial that in a commercial situation in France. So yes, you can do that. You can do an advertisement replacement in a broadcast environment thanks to HbbTV, but probably you don't get an as good replacement experience and execution as we, the broadcast community, would like to get, because in the broadcast community, we are used to very high levels of quality. What do we because we think we are not quite there yet, DVB has started a work to create the appropriate standardization framework to enable targeted advertising in the context of broadcast television based on 4 key considerations. Number one, obviously, targeted advertising is a key trend on the market. Number two, obviously, because it is a key trend in the market, it is very important for the broadcasters to be able to offer that to their advertising customers. And they should ideally be able to offer that with a similar level of control as the level of control that they have now on non-targeted classical advertising, because if they do not have that control, there is a high risk that they will lose the value to the benefit of the well-known digital players who have captured a very high proportion of other forms of advertising. And finally, again, HbbTV is an excellent start, but again, it is not providing a fully satisfactory solution, so something else is needed, and that is the work that DVB has started to generate a fully satisfactory targeted advertising, addressable advertising standardization framework. To be a little bit more precise, what is it that needs to be improved in HbbTV? And this is a little bit work in progress, but these are the conclusions from the study mission group from DVB, which I have been co-chairing. Number one, HbbTV does not yet provide in all conditions the level of accuracy that we would like to get. In the context of broadcast television, I think it is not acceptable that one advertisement would be a little bit late to be displayed on the screen, or that one advertisement would be partially cut by a substitution mechanism. It might be acceptable or accepted and tolerated in the context of a PC, of a mobile. It cannot be tolerated, I think, in the context of broadcast television. Stream event is a very interesting technology that is part of HbbTV and which provides a mechanism to create a very precise triggering clock, if you will, in the broadcast signal. And I think most of the companies involved in addressable advertising in broadcast are looking at stream events. But right now it works as a container, but you don't have any standardization of the message that is going to be put in the container, and that is a limitation. Number three, stream events, again, is a very precise clocking technology, but there is no guarantee that the clock will be propagated within the TV set in a predictable manner, and that is, again, a limitation. Another very important thing is the preload of advertisement. Most of us who have been working in this study mission, we are convinced that to go to a fully satisfactory viewer experience, you need to preload the advertisement in the TV set. Because again, if you bring yourself in the context of broadcast television, by definition in broadcast, you have millions or tens of millions of people who are watching exactly the same thing at the same moment. If you have 15 millions of TV sets which at the same moment call on the same ad server to get a replacement ad, it is quite unlikely all of those 15 million ads will arrive in time on the 15 million TV set. So most likely the safe way to do things is to preload the replacement ads on the TV set. Can you do it? Yes, but HbbTV does not yet provide a fully satisfactory way to do that. It needs to be improved. Then there is also an issue with the simple rollout and implementation of HbbTV. Again, HbbTV is an extremely powerful set of technologies and standards, but manufacturers, the TV set manufacturers, to put it mildly, they have a variable level of deployment of HbbTV. on a country-by-country basis, depending on the commercial models that exist or do not exist in certain countries, they will or will not deploy HBB-TV, they will or will not deploy the latest version, and they will or will not push the testing to the highest level. And for those organizations, and my company does that, when you work in real life with HBB-TV sets, sometimes you find results which are not exactly the ones that you are expecting. And then there is one final and not negligible element, which is that the manufacturers are sending, I think, a very clear message. And I think our side of the industry, the broadcast and broadcast operators, we are ready to hear that message, is that the manufacturers are ready to update and complement the set of technologies that they implement on TV sets, but they'd like to do that as part of a commercial relationship and not only as part of the standardization relationship. So having found all of that, DVB-TA is going to be, at a certain moment, a new DVB specification dedicated to enable targeted advertising in the context of broadcast television. We have set a number of objectives, which I will not comment, which are listed here, which should be achieved by that future DVB-TA specification. What I would like to stress is what is at the bottom of the slide, which are the two things which will not be part of the specification because we think they are not part of the mandate of DVB. One of them is the management and the compliance with privacy regulations. So certainly we will be cognizant of those regulations, and we will try to create the technical conditions in which those regulations may be complied, but it's not going to be the job of a technical specification to comply with privacy regulations. Another important thing is that the DVB-TA specification will not deal with things which are extremely important, such as making the ad decisioning, profiling, segmenting. This will be left to the existing ad tech systems and companies, and we really want to position the DVB-TA specification as more like a connector between the TV set and the existing advertising systems. How and when will that happen? So we are at the beginning of this journey. So now DVB has formally taken the decision to establish a dedicated group, which will be called DVB-CMTA, forgive me for the jargon, but that's the way DVB works. The job of that group is going to be to write what we called in the DVB language, CRs, meaning commercial requirements. So that's going to be a description of what should be achieved by the specification or standard. The focus of that work will be very much on horizontal broadcast. Horizontal broadcast means the classical free-to-air broadcast where the broadcaster will send a signal without any access control, individual customer relationship. But there is a warm invitation from DVB to invite the commercial vertical operators, whether it is pay TV, whether it is satellite, whether it's IPTV, to participate into the standardization process so that we would create a very attractive context for the advertisers and the broadcaster where a single technical framework will deal with more than one platform so that there would be one system that works, for example, in the case of France for IPTV, and also works for classical broadcast television. The work on the commercial requirements, we hope we can complete that for middle of next year. And then, of course, we will have a very tight liaison with HBB-TV because, as you understood, many of the technical things will happen in HBB-TV, and most likely the work that DVB will initiate will result in an improvement or an update of the HBB-TV specification to fully meet the requirements for addressable advertising. These things take time, and it might be disappointing for the business audience that is dreaming, I hope, to have addressable advertising solution next week in the context of broadcast television, but it does take time to write a standard. It does take time to make the standards being adopted by the manufacturers. So we are aiming at having that in service in 2020. It doesn't mean that nothing will happen before 2020, and as I mentioned already, there have been some trials, some experiments, and I think this will continue. There might be even some commercial solutions taking place before the standard is completed, but at a certain point, certainly, everything will merge and hopefully fall under the umbrella of such a standard. So, in summary, yes, we believe targeted advertising, and I think this whole event is a proof of that. Targeted advertising, addressable, is very important. It is a very high strategic stake for the broadcasters, and it would be probably an extremely high risk or negative thing if targeted advertising would not happen in classical broadcast television. There is a need for the broadcasters to rely on a broadcaster-friendly solution. And right now there are other solutions which are probably much less friendly to the broadcasters. And the ambition of DVB is to create the standardization for that broadcaster-friendly solution so that the potential value upside of addressable advertising will be fully unlocked to the benefit of broadcasters in the classical broadcast context. All stakeholders will benefit, the broadcasters, the advertising brands, and the digital advertising experts who have already deployed their systems in other contexts are also highly welcome and invited to participate into this effort so that the specification that will be developed in DVB will easily interconnect with the existing trading and ad decisioning platforms. So that was my message on standardization this morning. Thank you very much.
Vincent, thank you very much. We're going to take questions from the audience now. I think we have one over there.
It's coming.
Vincent, David Cutts from Strategy and Technology of DVB, but not yet a member of your group. So are you chairing the commercial module group?
It's still to be decided because we are just now transitioning from the study mission to the commercial group, and the commercial group needs to be formed and to elect a chairman.
Okay, I'll bid for a place at some point. Okay, some context for folks in the UK. Here in the UK, we have we've been working for 20 years with a slightly different interactive TV standard. And so we have in the market now about 10 million TV sets which are connected to the internet and do such things like online ad insertion into live. We demonstrated that in a couple of contexts last year, and I hope that by the time we get to this conference next year, we'll be able to show you something real in terms of ad insertion into live over the internet. There are two remarks I would make about it. One is that yes, there is an issue about frame accuracy, and that's hard to get away from, given that you're mixing a broadcast delivery with an online delivery, and there is going to be there's an issue at the junction. So that's going to be one of the real important issues for the DVB spec. The second is that the scale is A, important, and B, controllable. My analogy for this is that somebody said that when you're flying, takeoffs are optional and landings are mandatory. And in delivery of online advertising over the internet to broadcast, delivery is optional, but then accuracy is mandatory. So you mustn't interfere with the total broadcast experience. And we believe we're getting a handle on that now, so that we wouldn't necessarily expect this to work in very high reach programming, but it might be very useful in at this stage of the game in something less with less reach. So I can go on about this a long time, and I hope to go on about it more at next year's conference. Thank you. So there was a question in there somewhere, but it was at the beginning.
So you're confirming this was not a question.
I have one question, Vincent. Having worked in addressable advertising for a long time, both in here and in the States, I would say the biggest thing by far was not the technology, it was business cooperation between TV platform providers and broadcasters and content owners. Are there dependencies between those two kind of constituents around HbbTV, or does the broadcaster really have kind of full control in terms of insertion data and measurement using HbbTV?
Well, first I would say that in what we are doing here, meaning enabling addressable advertising in broadcast TV, I think we have both categories of problem. We have technical issues to resolve, and accuracy, avoiding the waiting on the screen, etc., is one category of technical problems for which we need to find technical solutions. And then, of course, we also have commercial matters where all the stakeholders need to find a way to cooperate that makes sense for them. And I think we need to progress on the two fronts in parallel. I'm rather optimistic on the fact that an HbbTV-based solution should provide to the broadcasters the level of control that they are legitimately looking for, because, by the way, HbbTV was made for that very purpose. So I think HbbTV is most likely HbbTV with DVB on top of it, or the other way around, because at the end of the day, the two are very close. But I think it's the safe way for the broadcasters to go to create a framework in which they can take advantage of addressable advertising without the risk of losing everything, which has happened in other worlds and other medias.
Great. Thank you very much.
Oh, hi there.
Got one more.
I think one. Hi there, David Falk from UView. Quick question. So the presentation looks great from a technology side of things, but for addressable advertising to work, or you're going to deliver a more relevant advert to someone, you need some data to be able to decide, why is this advert more relevant than the other? So I'm interested from, you've got the technology. What data are you going to actually get back from the TV?
Yeah, I probably have been too quick on that, but actually the data generation or collection is the easy part of the story, to a certain extent. What can very easily be done today with an HbbTV TV set is that it is very easy for that TV set to provide every second or every 10 seconds or every quarter of a second, if you decide so, to bring upward a very basic set of data which is more or less limited to the identity of the TV receiver, the IP address, and which TV program is watched. It's not a lot, but it's already a lot. Because if you know that, and especially with the IPTV address, and if you accumulate data over a sufficient period of time, I think you can use that as a very strong, but it's not my job. It's the job of the data specialist. But what I hear when we discuss with this type of companies, that if they are provided with this IP address and with a reasonable history of TV watching of a given TV set, they can use that to generate some interesting profiling data, and which, as I said, is not going to be dealt with DVB. The specification will be limited again to the connection.
Thank you. One more question?
Yeah, Oliver from Google. My question would go in the direction of the one of our moderator, asking about the relation between HBBTV and DVB again. When I understood your presentation correctly, you're abstracting also from the HBBTV's work, so that in the end, a DVB solution could also work without the browser environment for the ad insertion. And as we learned yesterday from your Orange colleagues, they're also working on something like that. And the French market is not necessarily an HBBTV market. So how is your viewpoint on dynamic ad insertion or target ad insertion without the browser of HBBTV? In the end, with a proprietary solution or with another application environment than the browser, in example, also Android TV. So.
Well, that question is taking me to the limits of my direct technical personal understanding, but I will still try to answer it. I don't think that when we do addressable advertising or ad substitution in the context of HBBTV, I don't think we use a browser. We are using other HBBTV mechanism, but we are not using a player or a browser. I'm not 100% sure, but it's my understanding. So the DVB/HBBTV solution, I'm not sure it's going to be easily ported to a browser environment. And by the way, it's not going to be the #1 goal of that specification. Again, as I said, I think the explicit priority of the DVB work group is going to be to serve the broadcaster community and achieve addressable advertising in the context of horizontal classical television. That's #1 priority. If by chance some vertical TV operators are interested in joining forces and create together a specification that can address the various platforms, whether they are horizontal or vertical, like IPTV set-top box, all the better. And by the way, in the specific context of France, I think it was mentioned yesterday by Virginie from Canal, there is an ongoing work within SNP-TV, which gathers all the television channels and the distribution platforms. And as a preliminary goal, and I hope we can work towards achieving that goal, we would like to define a set of interfaces and metrics that would apply similarly to broadcast television and IPTV. Too early to know if we're going to achieve that, but that's the goal.
All right, we have thank you very much, Vincent.